So top 5 budget decks of the current format. There surprisingly are some cheaper decks to play, considering all the Brave decks that are around right now. So if you guys are looking to pick up a new deck, or you just want to try something new, and you're working on a budget, I'm going to give you guys some sort of tips on what to pick up. So without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. Shout out to TCG Player. We're using the decks and events tab, so check that out if you want some more information. But in no particular order, we're going to start things off with our top 5 by going with Virtual World. So this is Virtual World without the Adventurer engine, but obviously it's a little bit dated. So it was that end of January. It got second at the Pro Play Games tour. I think this was like the weekend after Adventurer got announced. I'm not too sure, but still, I think the deck pure is really good. One thing that gives this deck an edge is the extra deck monster. If I can find it, it is Shen Shen. I'm sure you guys are aware of what Shen Shen does. Banishes all cards on the field, basically. Any cards sent from the field to the graveyard is banished. So it's really good against the current meta. And yeah, just a decent deck in general. Pretty budget, it's had loads of reprints, so definitely worth mentioning. And it's just a good entry-level deck for players that really want to test themselves. It's a little bit trickier to learn than your casual control deck, but once you pick it up, you'll be smashing it. Next is Earth Machine. So this is a deck that comes in and out of the metagame, hasn't really seen much success recently. However, it did just top a YCS, so yeah, decent. Also, Skill Drain is indirect support for the deck. A lot of the monsters, the main monsters like the Citadel, can play under it really well. And yeah, just a really good deck in general. You can use the XYZs, you can Zeus really well. Just a good control deck. I think if you're playing on a budget, this isn't the most budget deck, because I know some of the monsters, I think it's Harvester, still like quite pricey, but other than that, most of the decks had reprints, so it should be too expensive. Plus, it was in a structure deck, so yeah. And what's it called? The Urgent Schedules got reprinted, so yeah, that massively helps. Next is Trilurisk. So this has got much cheaper because you can't really go into the line of play where you use the Utopic XYZ anymore. You can play it, but I don't think, yeah, this list really opts for it. Also, one thing to note as well, obviously, I presume most budget players can't afford an access code. I'd say as a alternative would be Borrelsword Dragon. So if you guys are looking for an alternative, that is a budget way to OTK, generically as well. But access code is probably the go-to. So yeah, so Trilurisk is probably one of the best decks at last format. It's fell off quite a bit since the ban list, but I still think it's really consistent, good deck. Does what it, I think Bird Call is really broken, so that's just like a good extender searcher. Also, the engine itself is really versatile as well. You can play loads of hand traps in it, which I think hand traps are like really good as format. So yeah, obviously this list does play the right of Armacia, but obviously you can just not play that and just play like a pure version of it. So yeah, really cool deck. I probably see this deck to stay around for a while. So if you want like a mid-range deck that can play a lot of hand traps, this deck is definitely for you. Okay, next is Fluentary. So I mentioned this in my top 5 decks last time. I think Fluentary's isn't the best deck, but in my opinion, it's so accessible, it's really budget, and it's a simple deck to play. So for an entry-level player or budget player, it's going to see loads of representation because of that. So yeah, I definitely see this deck sticking around for a while. It's probably going to get better as the format lowers in ceiling. So yeah, this is quite an accessible deck for anyone to pick up. I really recommend trying it out if you haven't already. Obviously, Prosperity can be switched. Riser's due a reprint, could be in the Ghost of the Past, you never know. But yeah, definitely worth mentioning this for the top 5 budget decks. And then lastly is Eldritch. So Eldritch is obviously a really good control deck. It just does what it does. It loses to like a lot of extra deck stuff, but I feel like if you don't get Dust of the Lightning Storm, you can still like win games pretty easily. So yeah, and cards are mostly really accessible. Skill Drain's got a reprint as well. Most of the other Floodgates just got reprinted, so I'll probably say the only pricey card in this deck is Lords of the Heavenly Prison. Also, Extravagance got a reprint recently, which is really good. You don't really need to play Dragoon, but you can play any sort of generic X-Boxy, like Pleiades is really good in this deck. So yeah, it's a decent little budget deck you guys can play, and if you have any questions or ideas, feel free to check them in the chat, check out my socials, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next one.